KUBO'S Wild Adventures. Heads may be lost and found, ropes twisted from dreams, but clever Kubo always finds a way. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Kubo, quick as a wink and always full of wild ideas. All summer, he stayed high in the mountains with the sheep, never once peeking down into the busy, bustling village. He didn't know what was happening there, or even if the village still existed at all. One autumn day, when it was time to let the sheep graze the fields, Kubo's father gave him a job.
Kubo, go herd the flock on our field by the edge of the forest,
he commanded, his eyes stern. Kubo gathered the sheep from the hills and led them down to the fields. He built a sturdy sheepfold and let the flock graze all over the field. So well, you could almost imagine the grain would grow twice as tall as anywhere else. But soon his father came to check, and when he saw what Kubo had done, he threw up his hands.
Kubo, what on earth have you done here?
He cried, thunderstruck.
What do you mean? I herded the flock on your land.
Kubo replied, chewing a blade of grass.
You herded them all right, on the neighbor's field, not ours.
His father groaned.
What? No way! Are you serious?
Kubo gasped.
It's true, and now we're in trouble. Our field is still as bare as a bone.
His father lamented.
Well, nothing's lost. There's a solution for everything.
Kubo burst with confidence. He called the farmhand over for help.
Let's grab this field, just like a tablecloth, and move it back home.
And that's exactly what they did. Each of them grabbed a corner, and together, huffing and puffing, they picked up the whole field, with all the sheepy goodness, and plopped it right down on their own land. Now their field was as lush as golden grain. Satisfied, Kubo's father strolled home, and Kubo wandered back to his hut. But when he glanced over his shoulder, what did he see? In no time at all, a hemp stalk had grown right there in the middle of the field, reaching high into the sky. So tall, it seemed to touch the clouds. Kubo, always curious, thought to himself, why not climb it and see where it goes? Up he went, faster than a squirrel, until he reached the very gates of heaven. Thinking he'd found the perfect spot to herd his sheep, Kubo knocked bravely at the heavenly door. But the angels shook their heads. No sheep allowed. Kubo had nothing else to do and started to feel heavy-hearted and bored. Soon, he missed his sheep and his cozy life down below. Getting up was easy, but how to get down? A storm had blown through, and the giant hemp stalk had fallen. He looked down. Whoa! It was a long way. He had no wings, and jumping was out of the question. Kubo searched high and low for a rope maker, someone who could twist a rope for him to climb down. But not a single one could be found in heaven, and there wasn't even a scrap of fiber to twist for himself. Scratching his head, he wandered back to heaven's door and suddenly spotted a barrel full of bran. With a flash of inspiration, he twisted the bran into a thin cord, but it was so flimsy, he worried it might snap. So he doubled it up, and, with a deep breath, started down, slow and careful. He shimmied all the way to the end of the cord, but he was still far from the ground. No turning back now, Kubo thought. He squeezed his eyes shut and jumped. He soared like an angel, but crashed down like a thunderbolt. Right into the earth. How to get out? No problem for Kubo. He raced home, grabbed a shovel, and dug himself out, shaking off the dirt as if he'd just tossed off a sack of rocks. With winter coming, Kubo figured he should chop some firewood to keep the family warm. He marched into the whispering woods, swinging his axe, the one with the massive iron head. Suddenly, he heard starlings chirping right behind his ears. He spun around but saw nothing, just the sound, busy as a bee, right by his head.
Where are those starlings? Are they in my head or hiding in the axe?
Kubo wondered aloud. He He thought about banging his head on a rock. But ouch, that would hurt. Instead, he grabbed his axe and whacked it against a stone. Out poured a flock of starlings. So many, it was like every starling in the country had squeezed inside his axe. What now? He had no sack, and even if he did, it would never hold them all. Lucky for Kubo, he had a long, thin string in his pocket. He quickly tied up all the starlings, wrapped the string around himself, and gave a jump for joy. But the starlings suddenly spread their wings and, whoosh, lifted Kubo high into the air. He soared far and wide, higher than the tallest tree, flying over sparkling seas, until he found himself above the Black Sea. People below spotted him and ran to the shore, yelling in shock and awe.
A sorcerer! A sorcerer is flying! Catch him! Tie him up!
They shouted from the shore, but from way up in the sky to Kubo's ears, it sounded like,
Untie him! Untie him!
The villagers seemed to call. And as the starlings started to swoop down towards the shore, Kubo thought, well, I guess I should untie myself now. He let go of the string and fell free, but too soon. He splashed down in the middle of the sea. Lucky for him, a giant fish swam by on the crystal clear water. Kubo landed right on its back. But when 12 pairs of oxen tried to pull Kubo and his fish to shore, the chain snapped. They just couldn't budge him. At last, along came an armless man.
Let me try.
The armless man bellowed. He grabbed Kubo and the fish with his teeth and lifted them up high, showing them to the crowd like a prize on a platter. The villagers stared, jaws dropping wide. So wide, the armless man tossed Kubo and the fish straight into the mouth of a naked man standing nearby.
That'll cost you if you want them back.
The naked man declared, rubbing his hands together. If the villagers wanted their prize returned, they had to pay, filling the naked man's empty pockets with gold. The armless man and the naked man split the treasure between them, and even the blind beggar at the edge of the crowd got a coin or two. The blind beggar gently took Kubo's hand.
Come, Kubo. I'll lead you home from these faraway lands.
The old beggar said kindly. Back home at last, Kubo one day loaded a sack of rye to take to the mill for flour. He stopped by the mill, and since the ground was muddy, he stuck his whip into the mud, thinking it would stand better there than leaning it against the wagon. But what do you think happened? The whip grew into a tall aspen tree, stretching higher than the rooftops. The whip dangled at the very top, waving in the wind. No problem for quick-thinking Kubo. With his long hair, he grabbed a handful, flung himself into the air, snapped off the top of the aspen with the whip, and, just like that, jumped back down with exactly as much whip as he needed. He cracked it once, and off he went, homeward bound. Then, one day, Kubo fell terribly ill. The old women tried every remedy they knew, but not even all the grandmas in the world could cure him. That night, Kubo dreamed he'd get better if only he could scoop up some fish and crayfish and eat his fill. On St. John's Eve, he got up, grabbed an old pot, and hurried to the stream. The water was frozen solid, as clear as glass. He smacked his pot against the ice to break a hole, but the pot shattered instead. Furious, Kubo grabbed his own head off his shoulders and smashed it down on the ice. Crack! A hole appeared at once. But what could he use to catch the fish now? He ran home for another pot. On his way, he heard a thumping in a barn. Inside, the farmer was threshing grain, with the help of 3 roosters.
Farmer, are you out of your mind? Those roosters will eat every single grain they thresh. You fool!
Kubo bellowed.
You're the fool, Kubo, walking around without a head.
The farmer burst out laughing. At that very moment, Kubo realized, oh no, his head was still on the ice by the stream. He He raced back, but when he got there, crows had swooped down and pecked out every grain of sense he had left, if he'd had any at all. And that's the end of the wild, wonderful adventures of clever, crazy Kubo, who always found his own way no matter how impossible things seemed.